What is going on, everybody? This is the Reformation Keegan, and I'm here with another analysis. Today, we have Kill or Be Killed by Ed Brubaker and Sean Phillips. Or, if you're an English major, you can correct this. They call it Scene Phillips. But, nevertheless, Sean Phillips is one of my favorite artists, and Ed Brubaker is one of my favorite writers, which stems from his Captain America run in the early into the late 2000s. So, I'm excited to have this. This was a huge want on my list, and I picked this up at a Black Friday sale late last year. And I'm pretty happy that I have it because this is a compendium. And compendiums to me are worth investing in because they give you all that you need. So if you're a comic collector out there, I highly recommend that you invest in trades and invest in compendiums because they have all that you need. And at comic sales, you can get them for half price as well, which will really help your bank balance, for lack of a better phrase. So that is that. But I want to get to this review slash analysis. I'm going to try not to make this too long because I don't want to get too speculative, because this is a major factor in this story, and I don't just want to relist events that have already happened. So I want to get a little more into theory. So if you've read this, you'll know what I'm talking about. But if you haven't, I would say log off of this video because there will be spoilers. So just be aware of that. But if you're okay with the spoilers, stay on, because it maybe will help you understand the story a bit more. Which leads to my first point. This story can come across as a hermeneutic irritant, which means that the author, sometimes deliberately and sometimes not on purpose, will create a story that causes the reader to think about things but not necessarily come to a conclusion. And this can be a good thing, and this can be a bad thing. In my opinion, for Kill or Be Killed, it's a good thing, because with mental health, there's so many shades of gray that I think go overlooked. And I think that's what this story tells, is that story of mental health where you can't always come to a consensus. And I really think that this story predicates off of a question. Is Dylan schizophrenic? And I'm under the impression that he's not. And I say that because I think, in my opinion, the devil is something that you can't really see, but something that you can feel. Even though the devil does have a physical rendering in this story, I think the devil is something that does exist in some way, shape, or form. And I think that Dylan's encounter is true. And I'll give you a reason for that. So we almost have a climax near the beginning of the story where Dylan is very depressed, very despondent, and look out for those themes in this story. You're gonna see themes of despondency, and you're gonna see themes of perpetual despair. And Dylan, who's a 28-year-old grad student, he just has enough, and he jumps out of his window. He's gonna commit suicide, but he survives. He ends up landing on some clothing and things like that, on like rails and stuff like that, and he ends up surviving. And the funny thing is that he has a very cushiony fall. And right after is when the devil, I'm going to call him the devil in this, basically saves him. At least that's the way I interpreted this. And the devil makes a deal with him. Because you wasted your life trying to do this act, which is suicide, you need to kill somebody for me, but you need to do it every now and then. So there's a theme of time. And if Dylan doesn't kill somebody when the devil seems fit, or deems fit, sorry, then he gets violently ill. He regurgitates. He can't get out of bed. He's pretty much useless. He's pretty much bedridden. So Dylan makes the conscious decision, even if it's against his own wishes at the beginning, to go and kill anybody that he sees as a horrible person. Even though Dylan at the beginning isn't really that great of a person either, because he rooms with Mason, who has his girlfriend Kira, and Dylan at the end of the day basically takes Kira away from Mason, even though Mason is kind of a jerk in a lot of ways. It doesn't justify stealing somebody's girlfriend, at least in this story. And that's something that Dylan does that's a bit sleazy, but that's nothing compared to what Dylan has to encounter. So we have a whole bunch of different people that Dylan encounters. Rex is a part of basically drug dealing, but he's not a bad person, which again helps address stereotypes of people that are drug dealers. And this is one of Dylan's best friends, if not his best friend. And when Rex ends up dying, we see this theme of perpetual bereavement that overcomes Dylan and actually makes the tires spin in his mind for him justifying killing people. And I don't think the devil is just a voice that he hears. I think the devil is almost a symbol of justice, which is very paradoxical. So it leads to this question. Does imprisonment actually serve as a form of justice? Because Dylan seems like he's a prisoner in his own mind. But then he's also at Serenity Oaks as well, which is an asylum, and he is mentally tortured there. Just not by anybody else too, but to his own detriment and to himself, where he sees events that he knows he can alter, but he can't do it yet, and he has to be very, very careful. So I'll give you an example. When he's basically done killing off the Russian mob, which he does very deliberately, almost as good as a hitman, he ends up running into Perry at Serenity Oaks, who's one of the caretakers or nurses, whatever you want to call Perry. But the thing is, Perry is a pervert and assaults women who are already not mentally capable of defending themselves, and that's an injustice that Dylan sees, and he's waiting and waiting and waiting to kill Perry. And Perry kind of starts catching on, and Dylan sometimes, he has to walk away when they're going for a walk to, alleviate the situation and try to pretend that nothing's happening, but then eventually catches him by some stairs and brutalizes Perry until the point that he does die. And it comes back to a theme of morality that Dylan struggles with. But here's a question. Does taking out somebody that does a horrible act mean it's a good thing to do? That's a question that Ed Brubaker is asking you, the reader. And Dylan believes that he's doing a good thing. At the beginning, he really doesn't want to kill anybody. But then you see as the story progresses, he's getting increasingly more comfortable. This story is a lot about social and personal justice. And when you see bad people, is imprisonment that said justice for them? Is imprisonment going to do anything? Can you rehabilitate predators? Can you rehabilitate somebody who has done a heinous act many, 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 many times? That's a question that Ed Brubaker is asking you. And I don't have the right answer, but this is a great question for theory and to debate on. And it would be extremely fun to debate on with other people. But in this story, Dylan is basically the guinea pig for that question. And Dylan, like I mentioned, later subsequently believes that he's doing the right thing. Is he? I don't know. But it's a good question to think about as you're reading this story. Because does the right thing even matter? There's almost a theme of nihilism here too, where does it matter at the end of the day what you're doing? Does it matter that Dylan does what he does? Does it matter that the devil's doing what the devil does? Does it matter at the end of the day? Because there's still always going to be bad people out there. You can't always get every bad person. But do numbers matter either? That's another big question. So this is a really interesting story. And here's another question. Is death justified when evil outweighs justice? So is death justified when evil outweighs justice? I know I talked about it a bit earlier, but is the death penalty, which Dylan would be the proverbial death penalty, the right way to go? Because, like I said, if you imprison somebody They may not be rehabilitated, or they could find a way out, or they could do it in said prison. So is Dylan right to listen to the devil and take out these people? I don't know. Because it's not the devil that's really influencing his decision of who he kills, as long as he gets somebody that he deems morally responsible for their actions. So that's a really, really unique take on this situation. But this is a really good story because it's not telling you what to believe, it's letting you think. And I think sometimes writers, they want you to believe what they believe, and they're trying to force that belief on you and tell you exactly what you need to believe. That's not what Ed Brubaker is doing here. He's giving you a situation contextually written in first person limited, letting you run the illusion of what's happening, and to let you run the illusion of what Dylan thinks and let you come to your own consensus. And the first person limited does this because we have Dylan talking to us and Dylan stating his opinions, but nowhere does it say that we have to agree with Dylan. And the first person limited gives you his viewpoint of the world. And when you get the viewpoint of Dylan's world, you can come to your own decision and think either with him or think against him. You don't have to always think with the text. You can think against the text too, which would make for a great essay argument too, to think against this text. So, like if you wrote an essay, you could write on reasons why Dylan isn't schizophrenic and why Dylan is in the moral right to take out all of these horrible people. You can do that. So that would be a really cool essay topic. That's why I think comics like these should be taught in high schools and universities, because then you can really assess the minds of your students and allow them to think for themselves and not just force your dogmatic perceptions on them. But that's my opinion. Let me know what you think about that claim I just made. But Kill or Be Killed is a lot of fun to read. And what I love is the ending. And I don't want to tell you the ending in full, but Ed Brubaker gives you two choices. You can have the happily ever after ending, or you can have the realistic ending. And this is where I said that Brubaker lets you run with the illusion of what happens in this story. You can choose your own ending without somebody forcing it on you, which I find very, very unique. And Ed Brubaker is one of my favorite comic writers of all time. He's written a lot of really good stuff. There's still a lot I need to read of his, but the stuff that I have read of Brubaker's has always been top notch. And this is one of the better comics I've read because it's so diverse in what it's telling. And that's what you need in comics, is you need diversity and you need innovation. And this story is very innovative. It takes a very simple premise, mystifies it, and makes it somehow realistic, which is really, really cool. So big theme of realism. But I want to know what you guys think. What do you think about Kill or Be Killed? What do you think of this analysis? What do you think about the questions I asked? You could have a lot of prompts written out for the answers. And I think with this kind of story, it opens up minds, it opens up perceptions. And I think, too, this is a story, like I mentioned, that could be taught in schools. It could be even taught outside of school. This is a book that I think you and a group of friends could read, like people used to do before social media, and sit and talk about this over a weekend. You read this on a Friday, because you could probably get this done in a day. You can read this on a Friday, and then sit with your friends and family on Saturday and watch a show, play Crash Bandicoot, do whatever you're doing, and sit and discuss this book and really, really investigate the tales that are being told. So I love this story. I highly advise that anyone who reads comics reads this. It's incredible. And also, don't forget to like, share, comment, subscribe. We're trying to hit 1,000 subscribers by the end of 2026. If I can, I'll become a YouTube partner and put out more and better content for you going forward. So please consider subscribing, leave a like, leave a comment, and I will be back with more, and I will see you soon.